when you walk away from that inspection and you tell the client you're going to have the report to them by X, under promise and over deliver. We always deliver the report the same day. We say we'll get it to you within the next day or two, and then it comes in early. And then when you commit to having it done in 2 hours and it's not there for 8, you've let your client down. Even though that's amazing service, you cannot put yourself in the position of being behind that promise.
Hey there, it's Jeff Luther, and you are diving into the podcast for the Service Business Blueprint. This is where I walk with you and help you unlock the secrets to building a thriving service-based business. We talk about everything from starting out to setting milestones in your company you didn't even know would exist. We'll cover entrepreneurship, personal growth, mindset, everything you need for success in your service-based business. You ready to build that blueprint? Welcome back to the Service Business Blueprint, where we share tools, tips, and strategies to achieve your personal and business goals and overcome mindset obstacles. I'm your host, Jeff Luther. And today we're really fortunate to have a special guest on the show, Alan Carson with Carson Dunlop. For those of you that don't know, that might not be in the inspection industry, Alan founded Carson Dunlop back in 1978 with his partner, Bob Dunlop. He's been an advocate for advancing the home inspection profession ever since. Alan has served as past president for not only the American Society of Home Inspectors, but also Ontario Association of Home Inspectors. But wait, there's more. Alan also helped write Carson Dunlop's home inspection training program, the home reference book, the illustrated home, and the technical reference guide, which we use in our business. So he's an accomplished author as well, and you could say probably wrote the book on home inspection. He's also responsible for a couple other noteworthy companies that he helped start: CDW Engineering, a commercial inspection company; the Carson Dunlop School of Home Inspection, where they train home inspectors; and then another product, the Horizon Home Inspection Report Writing Software. So, Alan, thanks a ton for being here. And I don't want it to get lost. Thanks for what you've done for this profession over the last 45 years. I appreciate you carving out the time.
All right, Jeff, I appreciate the more than generous introduction, and it's great to be here.
Awesome. I have so many questions, kind of jumping right in, right out of the gate. You're still incredibly involved in the home inspection profession. We all know that. Looking back, this might be a difficult question, but I'm so curious. What would you say, starting out as a home inspector now compared to when you started, what would you say is the two biggest challenges that home inspectors face starting a business now?
Well, there's a lot of assets that weren't available to us when we started, but there are also some challenges I should point out. And I would say that two of the current challenges are, one is across North America, the real estate markets have been tough. Sales have been down. And for those new to the profession, what we've also lived through in the last 4 or 5 years is bidding wars, where houses are selling in a competitive environment and buyers are having to forego their home inspection. So the market conditions have been tough. Either the market has been too hot with bidding wars where home inspections don't happen, or the sales volumes have been down as they are in many parts of the country now, and that just hurts the home inspection volume. The other challenge I would say is, when we started, nobody was doing home inspections, so we didn't have any competition. And now there's competition aplenty, and there are people out there. And there is, I think, in the public's mind and in some real estate professionals' minds, a bit of an assumption about a home inspection is a home inspection is a home inspection. And I think one of the challenges for all inspectors, not just new ones, is to avoid being treated like a commodity and to be able to differentiate your service and show how you can provide value that's going to make a difference in people's lives. And since, Jeff, I know you're not great at counting, if I go to 3 challenges instead of 2, you probably wouldn't even notice, right?
That's right.
So,
the new math.
there you go. So the other challenge that I might throw in as a bonus challenge is, again, not new, but ongoing. Home inspection is an interesting business because we rely on the intermediary, the real estate professional, to execute our business and in a lot of cases to drive our business. And yet our value proposition is fundamentally for the home buyer, homeowner. So we have two different audiences to talk to, and we have to understand that they have somewhat different goals and somewhat different needs and aspirations. So that would be the third challenge. And I couldn't get it down to two, Jeff, because I think those are all important, and I want people to think about those. So there are solutions to all those challenges, but I did want to make sure that people were aware that is something to think about. Your pitch to a real estate agent can't be about how great you're going to protect the homeowner, because they've got some other interests that get in the way before that. And so it's a tricky business when you first look at it. And so you got to stop and think your way through it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And it's an interesting point. I've been doing this for about half the time you have. So a little over 22 years. And in my experience, there's this misnomer out there that if the agent refers the home inspector, sometimes they're a bit in cahoots, that they have the same end goal in mind. And that's to get the client to the closing table, where in my experience, that's not the furthest thing from the truth, but it's just untrue. Agents that we work with generally have the client's best interest at heart. And if that means learning about a house and moving on to another, then 99% of the time they're fine with it. Have you found the same? Have you heard the same message?
Absolutely. And yeah, we've heard the same message and found the same. And I'm going to say that the real estate profession is like any other profession. There are some terrific practitioners. There are a bunch of competent practitioners, and there's a few bad apples. It's no different than any other group in the world. And I'm going to say, Jeff, in a business like yours and a business like ours, you tend to gravitate to the people who are of like mind. And so we have found ourselves privileged to be able to work with what I would consider the large group of good, decent, competent, and ethical real estate professionals. So I don't think that needs to be a consideration in people's business. There are lots of folks willing to do business. Now, they are in a sales role, and they do have a job to do, and they do have a family to feed. So their focus has to be a little bit different than our customers. But yeah, the worry about, the real estate agent is gonna throw me under the bus. We have not had a problem with that particularly over the years. And again, clients, we have had some clients that are nervous, even though they've engaged a real estate agent. They've said, I don't want you to give the report to the agent and so on. That does come up from time to time, but that's not the natural order of the business at all.
Yeah, we've found the same for sure. And then there's also, I think sometimes there's the feeling of conflicted interest from the inspector's perspective as well. Sometimes the inspector feels like their hand is forced in the inspection process, or maybe even in the documentation process. And I've never felt that way from an agent or from a client. Can you identify with that?
Yeah, in the early days, we definitely did. When home inspection was new and agents didn't really know what to expect from an inspection. And the initial thought when we were getting started was, hey, we've always sold houses without a home inspection. We don't really need a home inspection. But as time has gone on, that problem has kind of gone away, to your point. And it's a funny thing when people ask me who we're loyal to and who our obligation is to, and who our client is. At the end of the day, I say my client is definitely not the real estate agent, but it's also not necessarily the home buyer. My obligation and my responsibility is to the house, and a home inspector's obligation is to represent the house as accurately and fairly as they can. And I have found when we've said that, it brings a lot of conversations to a quick conclusion, and people kind of get it. And frankly, if you're going to try and twist and turn, and whether it's to an agent's whims or to a buyer's whims, and Jeff, I'm sure you've had some buyers who are getting cold feet about the process and ask you to write a harsh report, or another client who asks you to write a very positive report because their in-laws are lending them the money and they don't want to lose that mortgage opportunity. And at the end of the day, I think you still have to walk right down the middle of the road and say, if we're going to be in business tomorrow, today we have to represent the house as it is.
That's it. Yeah. And that's part of our training material as well. The house is the client. And we probably got that from you guys at some point in the past. And I always explain it to the inspector that that's the way you remove the emotion, because we're still human beings, contrary to what some folks might think of us. We're still human. We still have emotion. And sometimes that gets in, we allow that to get involved in our process, and focusing on the house as the client really helps remove that. In some of the recent conversations you and I have had around digital sales, online marketing, AdWords, Google local services, all of those things, that is kind of the buzzword in a lot of the Facebook groups and open discussions that I'm a part of. Most inspectors talk about how to market, how to get more business. And to me, it's kind of, lobbing it over the fence. There's a lot of electronic marketing that people want to do. They think it's kind of an easy button. But I try to redirect the conversation in scaling. How do you scale a business? How do you grow a business? How do you allow for that business to grow where you can still operate sustainably and at a profit? There's a funny word. I'm curious if you can think of a time over the years where maybe Carson Dunlop hit a ceiling, and yeah, you had business, but you just didn't have the capacity to do it, and you couldn't grow fast enough to keep up.
Yeah, I can think of 2 steps in our ladder that were the really hard ones to climb. And the first one came, as you mentioned at the outset, when we started the business, Bob Dunlop and I were doing the inspections. And so the first big challenge was, you mentioned, okay, we got to get more inspections. Okay, now I've got more inspections, and now I've got more inspections than I can do. And so that first big step is, so how do you grow to bring in another inspector? And now your hat has to change from the inspector hat and the sole proprietor hat to the business person hat that has a bunch more responsibilities. And one of the big challenges is there's no clone button on a human being that I've been able to find. And then secondly, and home inspection is a relationship business in my mind. And if your agents think the only person who can do a proper home inspection is Jeff Luther, it's hard for Jeff to bring in that next inspector, because everybody wants the guy they know and trust. And so that was the first big hurdle that we had to climb. And then the second one came when we had about 5 inspectors or 6 inspectors. And 2 things occurred to us as a big challenge and slowed us down for quite a while. We had to start to deal with consistency, and we had to start to worry about, is everybody saying the same thing about the same problem in a house? And then at the same time, we had to start thinking about, my gosh, if I'm going to stay busy doing inspections and have 5 other people out there, somebody's got to be running the business, and somebody's got to be managing, and somebody's got to be managing the inspectors. So with 1 or 2 or 3 guys, you can kind of flip hats pretty easily. When you get to a critical number, and for us it was about 5, for other people who might be smarter than me, it might be 7 or 8, but you get to a point where you need some more help to ensure that your inspectors get the support and the coaching they need, that the business gets the attention that it needs. And you have to change your model, and you have to build in some more overhead, which is a word nobody loves to hear. But if you're going to be sustainable and you're going to be profitable over the long term, you've got to build your business in such a way that it plans for and can accommodate those additional necessary elements to keep on growing and stay under control, and not have value and not have quality slip off the edge of the table at the same time. I made that sound pretty complicated, and in fairness, it is a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not as simple as it seems. And five was the number for me. Five was where it was almost like I was printing money. And then I hit five, and I had to, just like you said, I had to put systems in place. And with systems comes people. With people comes fixed costs. With fixed costs comes overhead. And all of a sudden, it was like I couldn't turn a profit at five inspectors. And then once I got to six, that was just the magnitude of the business, and that's where it changed. Which brings up another interesting point, and what I try to impress on our folks, and I think you and I have the same philosophy here, is growing or marketing a business too soon is actually detrimental. And what I mean by that is you go out and you market a business and you look for business to come in. People agree to give you a shot or give you a chance. They call your office and you can't service, you don't have the bandwidth to service the business that does come in. Well, that inspection, if you miss it and you can't service it, it is gone forever. Have y'all always had that same practice where you would like to have holes in your calendar versus turning business away?
Oh yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is a classic business problem of balancing supply and demand. And yeah, we have lived through times where we could not meet the demand. And to your point, exactly, we burned a lot of bridges and had a lot of real estate, and not just new real estate agents who were trying us out, agents who had used us for a while, who said, hey, Carson Dunlop's gotten too big for their britches. They're too important for me. They don't have time for a guy who's been working with them for years. And that really hurt our business for a while. And yeah, because I don't look up as often as I should, and I'm not that bright, it took us a while to figure out the damage that was doing to our business. And so ever since then, we have said, it's part of the cost of doing business to try and make sure that your supply stays ahead of your demand. And it only has to stay a little bit ahead, but when that balance shifts the other way, you can be taking a big step backwards.
Yeah, and it's hard to recover from. It's interesting. I wonder what you would have accomplished if you were that bright. I mean, 4 companies, 4 books, CEO of a national inspection firm, just average Joe, right?
Making it up as I go.
You're just fumbling through life. I love it. So I really want to talk about Horizon, the home inspection reporting system. We've been using it for, I think, 15 years. Does that sound right?
Entirely possibly, yep.
Yeah. And it was kind of a game changer. I just want to get this philosophy out in the open. I know that I've got several, I wouldn't say young inspectors, young inspection businesses is probably more appropriate, that listen to this podcast. One of the things when you were doing, very kindly, doing some reviews on our reports, was you finally said, Jeff, you're reporting like your audience is another home inspector coming behind you reading this report. I'm just going to challenge you to change that. And it saved me so much time. It made our reports so much clearer. And it allowed us to talk to an audience that didn't have the technical jargon in the background that we had and thought made us look so smart. Have you always had that philosophy, or did you get stung kind of like I did and realize that you needed to change?
Well, yeah, I'd like to say it was inspired genius, but no, it was learning the lessons in the trenches. And I mean, you touched on a few of my key philosophy points. And one is, when people ask me what business I'm in, I often say I'm in the communication business and we happen to do home inspections. And I think that's absolutely true. It's kind of a weird answer, but to me, the challenge that we have is, I have immense respect for how complex the process of home inspection is. but I have even more respect for our ability to turn complex things, a set of observations, reasoning, and deductions into a report that makes sense to a layperson. And we do it in a matter of hours. I know of no other profession that even attempts to do what home inspectors do. And that less is more philosophy, that communicate not to intimidate, but to educate, is really the philosophy. And there are a bunch of layers to Horizon that are built around that. We have tools built in to help inspectors make sure that they are consistent. I have a framework built into Horizon because I hate when home inspectors go into depth about the stuff they know and gloss over the stuff they don't. I want that inspection to be delivered at an even level across the board. I love reporting that is easy to read with lots of illustrations, bullet points rather. Does anybody really love reading a 2-page narrative? I don't. If you do, I love you. But yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of thinking I have around that has driven. And I will say, our first report writing system was a 3-ring binder with 3-part NCR paper back in the 80s and 90s. And even then, it was very much, let's keep it short and sweet. Let's give the clients what they need and allow them to go get other information if they want to dig deeper. And that's how Horizon's built. So what you need to buy the house, and then when you move in, it brings me to another rant of mine. I hate home inspection reports that have, there's a serious crack in the foundation wall. And by the way, you should clean your gutters at least twice a year, all in the same paragraph. Home buyers have their heart in their mouth. They're not thinking clearly. They need to be spoon-fed the information in the right categories. If you're going to give somebody general maintenance tips, you would say every house, their gutters should be cleaned. That to me belongs in a maintenance section of the report where the client can take a deep breath and say, okay, once I get settled in, this is how I care for and nurture my house. But right now I'm trying to decide whether I'm buying it or not. And that's where you focus on the things that matter that might affect a person's buying decision. And when we talk about purpose and objective, to me, the objective of a home inspection is to help a client make an informed decision about one of the biggest lifestyle and financial things they're ever going to do. We're here to help them make that decision. To your point earlier about looking good, in trying to impress the client because you know a bunch of fancy technical terms adds no value for them. Telling them how to maintain the thing after they've bought it doesn't scratch their itch today. It will tomorrow, but give them today what they need and then help them tomorrow in a different part of the report. That's enough of my rant, but there are so many things I'm passionate in. And I'm going to say, I read home inspection reports all the time. I'm quite disappointed in the profession that we don't do a better job for our clients.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I tell inspectors when we start the training program, these are new hires, and kind of giving them the broad overview of what we do. Would you agree with this? What the client is 90% of the time, what they're looking for is for everyone to stand around the kitchen counter and the inspector give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
100%.
That's what they want. Of course, that doesn't satisfy what our obligations are to do that. We have to at least give them some documentation, but that's what they're looking for. Should I buy this place or not? That's it. And if I do, what's my risk? What's the risk associated with buying this house?
That's it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. So I'm so curious, was Horizon built then out of the necessity to have inspection report? Because look, Horizon's different than just about everything on the market. Was it built out of necessity to go from the 3-part carbon list that we all used to use? And then it turned into a business? Is that how this worked? Or did you have a vision for a business?
Well, it was a bit of a hybrid because when we started our first reporting system, the 3-part NCR, that was built to serve Carson Dunlop specifically. And then so we built it So I'm not really in the software business. I'm in the business of helping to facilitate our home inspection business. And that's where it came from. By the time we moved to the software, so we launched the home reference book in the 1980s, and it was used through the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. By 2001, I had written an RFI for a piece of software. And nobody else was doing subscription-based software, or what people now call software as a service. There were some floppy disk things out there. But A, I thought they were terrible, and B, I thought it doesn't make any business sense to do that. Thing's going to be obsolete in a year. So that was why we went with the software as a system. But by then, I was trying to move Carson Dunlop's home inspection business into the 21st century, first and foremost, and get a leg up. I was looking for a competitive advantage, as I always am. And so that was what drove it. And then the back end of that was, and hey, we have a lot of people who used and loved our home reference book reporting system. And I wonder if they'll follow us over to Horizon. So it was I hope they come along kind of mentality at that point. But I will tell you that everything that's built into Horizon is built in to help our home inspection business first and foremost. We've added some things on over the years, but by and large, the philosophy and the substance of it is to help us drive our own business. And then it's not for everybody. Not everyone feels the same way about what's important around a home inspection as I do, and that's fine. I'm pretty passionate, and I'm pretty convinced over 46 years that my way is a good way. It's not necessarily the only way, but it works for us in our family.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's worked well for us. And I will say one last piece on that is inspectors, we're always looking for reviews. And I think or at least in the folks that I talk to, I think that's part of the marketing. But also I want a review on every inspection. I get up every day and we go out and do these inspections because I think what I'm doing is the right thing. I don't think I'm doing the wrong thing. So if I think I'm doing the right thing, I need someone to actually point it out. I'm too stubborn to see that it's wrong. So Listen 360 has been one of the pieces that we get with Horizon. Do you guys, I know you use it, right? The Listen 360? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I live
So
and die.
that's that feedback piece is, you can watch your net promoter score go up and down. That's the only consistent feedback that we get. And I don't know how other folks are doing it other than complaints, which we've never gotten one of those, but I hear other inspection companies get them from time to time. No one calls up and says, hey, I just want to let you know you did a really fine job. But Listen 360 has been really good. Super simple.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to figure out. I kept looking for more complexity in it. And to your point, what I find is we get about 25% of our clients respond. And the reason they do is the magic. Listen 360 is a brand name that uses a concept called Net Promoter Score. And the magic of Net Promoter Score is they only have one question in the survey. So it takes somebody under 30 seconds to fill out the survey, which is what increases the response rate. So say, we'd love for you to take 30 seconds to tell us what you thought of our business. And the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer us to a friend, family, or colleague? And that's the only question in the survey. And then the clever part to me comes in when you give them a 9 or a 10, you get a follow-on question. Was there anything you particularly liked? And if you get a 7 or 8, it asks you, was there anything we could do better? And if you get a 1 to 6, you say, we're so sorry we let you down. We'll reach out and follow up with you right away. And that is so powerful. And it's hands off. I think Jeff and I both start our day by seeing those emails come in overnight or early in the morning. And we survey both clients and agents. And you get that feedback. And you feel good about the positives, and it's reinforcing, and there is lots of material there to market and help build your business. Those there's some sentences in there that I would be too embarrassed to write. They're so positive as marketing material on my own, but I love to use them. Other people say it. And then the other side of the coin is, as Jeff alluded to, If in fact a client's not happy, well, you can put your head in the sand and ignore that. But if they tell 10 or 15 people, that's not going to help your business. And if they're real estate agents, that effect is multiplied. So I think one of the most valuable parts of Listen 360 is when you get some bad news, go figure it out, figure what they didn't understand, what they missed, or if you missed it, go make it right. It's not very complicated. And I'll tell you what, the hardest part of any journey is that first step. So a lot of people won't take that first step to reach out when somebody's got something bad to say. I would encourage you, if you do nothing else in your business, follow up with people who are not happy just as quickly as you can. In my opinion, that becomes job one.
Yep. Yeah. And speed, and more speed when you're dealing with an unhappy client. And what we do, this is kind of tilting my hand a little bit, but we under promise. So we say, we'll contact you. I think we say 48 hours or 2 business days. And the reason that we do that is something comes in 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. We're probably not going to call them that night. It'll be first thing the next morning, but we just bought ourselves a day. So now they're kind of stewing on, oh my gosh, these people, not only did they mess up, but now they're going to wait all this time to call me. So when we call them earlier, it diffuses it much easier. A lot of times people just want to be heard.
Oh yeah. I'm going to take that comment and just back it up a step to when we were talking about report writing. I would do exactly the same as what Jeff just said when it comes to when you walk away from that inspection and you tell the client you're going to have the report to them by X, under promise and over deliver. We always deliver the report the same day. We say we'll get it to you within the next day or two, and then it comes in early. And then when you commit to having it done in 2 hours and it's not there for 8, you've let your client down. Even though that's amazing service, you cannot put yourself in the position of being behind that promise.
Yep. It's all about the experience. And that I harp on that. Consumers are experience driven. And before I forget, Listen 360, do you forward those, the good ones? Do you forward them out to the inspectors when they write a good note about the inspector?
The inspectors are automatically copied on them. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. I forward all of them manually.
Yeah, no, there's a tool in Listen 360, I believe, where those and the inspectors see their own reviews. They don't see all the others, but they see their own. So yeah, everybody and we have had people, we had one person who said, oh, don't send these to me. They're too, they give me an ego boost when I don't need it on the upside. And if I get a bad one, it ruins my whole day. So, yeah, but for the most part, our inspectors get them. Yeah. And do you share them back when you get a positive one from an agent? Do you share those back with other agents in the office or other agents you're talking to about winning their business?
From time to time, if I see an opportunity, I'm not bold enough about that. But if I can use it as an opportunity where I'm trying to break into something, yeah, I'll use it then. But I should be more diligent about that, and I'm just not.
One of the nice things about Listen 360 is there's a tool in it that automatically puts the reviews on your website for you. And so you can have a page on your website that is devoted to client reviews and another page devoted to agent reviews. And so when you're talking to a new agent or when you're talking to somebody shopping for home inspections and say, here's what other home buyers have found. Or when you're talking to an agent, here's what your colleagues say about Home Probe. And so, and you just give them a link and point them to that. And at one point, and our website has changed recently, but at one point we had over 10,000 agent reviews on our webpage. And like it's powerful for some people, not everybody, but yeah. And these are real people. And the agents sometimes put their name in, sometimes it'll just be their initials, but there's a date on it. They're real feedback. They're honest. There's nothing trumped up about it. We didn't go out and pay anybody to do these things. We don't give them a reward for doing them. We are right down the middle with it.
Yep. Yeah. Same with us. It's transparency. And I think in the digital age, consumers can identify when you are and are not transparent for sure. Yeah. One thing I want to talk about too, you mentioned every time we talk about anything digital, I keep going back to digital advertising, that being the hot button. I talked to a company recently that does digital advertising for home services companies. And in the course of the conversation, they said, what we strive for and what we like to accomplish is for every $600 in ad spend, you're generating $3,000 in revenue, which sounds great on the surface, right? Particularly if you're one-man shop. By my numbers, that means you have to be operating at 20% profit just to break even on buying that business. I don't see how you win.
And the reason that argument, and by the way, I agree with you. We've had this discussion a bunch of times. But the reason that pitch works is because most people don't understand how you get from the top line to a bottom line on a P&L.
Yeah.
And when you promise that an ad is going to generate X dollars in sales, if every sale was 100% profit and you just took the money and put it in the bank, and you didn't have to do any work for it or have any overhead or any risk or any training or any insurance or any vehicles or any rent or anything else, that argument would hold water. But the reality is, I don't get to take all of my $700 inspection fee and put it in the bank. So that number, you're exactly right. Your 20% number, there's not a lot of home inspection businesses that are multi-inspector firms who have a profit margin north of 20%. So, and I'll tell you what, if you go across North America, there are very few businesses that have a profit margin more than 10% across any profession you care to look at. So right. When you talk about being in a business, not just having a professional practice of one home inspector, when you talk about thinking about a business, a 20% profit margin is very lofty. And when salespeople are trying to compare the investment in their product with what your top line sales number is, listen and be very careful about what you act on based on that information. That piece of advice, Jeff, is probably the most important thing we've talked about today. Is you can get fooled into buying stuff that doesn't really help your business, but you think it does.
Yeah, and for the single operator, that may work. I can't remember what the numbers were when you're a single operator, but still, you're cutting into what you have to do when you go on vacation, what you have to do when you're sick, what you have to do when the phone's not ringing. So all that cuts into it. But the piece that is lost is just for me, and I found this out the hard way. You know exactly what I went through. Just looking at your P&L statement reflectively, in hindsight over the last month, doesn't necessarily matriculate into what you're putting in your pocket. You have your P&L statement also combining those with the balance sheet, which is what I was not doing. I was like, wait a second, this shows, look at all this money. Where's this money? It's supposed to be in my pocket. Oh, yeah. So we have interest, we have payments, we have these liabilities sitting out there. So just by looking at your P&L and making a decision off of that, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And your point about maybe it works for a sole proprietor is true, and it isn't, in the sense that what I find with most sole proprietor businesses is they cheat. They don't count their time working in the business. When you get to be big, you got to have somebody answer the phone, and you got to have somebody doing this, that, and the other. If you do it all yourself, you do get to put most of the money in your pocket. The downside to that is when you add up the number of hours you work over the course of a day, week, month, and a year, you might be working for $15 an hour. So that's how it can look like it works for a small business. And if you're willing to work like a dog and do all that, it's a hard way to build a business, and it's hard to be sustainable doing that. I'm never going to sleep because I got to answer the phone. I'm never going to take a vacation. I can't afford to get sick, and I got to do it all myself. It's maybe a bootstrap way to get started, but as you look up ahead and you lift your eyes up off the desk and you look out on the horizon, you can't do that sustainably forever. So it might be a starter kit, but it ain't a long-term strategy.
Right. Yeah, without a doubt. I'm going to shift gears quickly. I know that you've got some commitments, and I thank you so much for being here. You have served on several roles on the ASHE board as well as in Ontario. And again, going back to the audience, I think we have a lot of younger businesses that listen to this show. At one point, I had an interest in being on the ASHE board. I'd been approached about it. I never did it. What would you say to someone is considering kind of following the footsteps that you went through, serving on the board, being a president? Are you glad you did it? Did it make enough of a difference?
I'm so glad I did it. I'm not sure what kind of difference it made. The reason I'm glad I did it is I had my eyes opened to how other people do business and how other people think about our business. So I took it as an education experience. One of the other benefits is I got a bunch of friends for the rest of my life. So I've got people all over North America that I know, and I was down in North Carolina visiting somebody not too long ago that I met in my days with ASHE. What I would say is, please don't do this. Please don't get involved with a professional association because you think it's going to be a feather in your cap and it's going to drive your business and you can use it as a marketing tool and credential. If you go into that, and I can see people who do that, and you can see that that's their motive for doing it from a mile away.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that at the end of the day, your business is going to grow because of how you take care of your clients. Your business is the credentials and stuff. There are associations out there who can give you more credentials than I ever got as a Cub Scout and a kid, and all the badges and stuff on my shirts. That the badges and the credentials are nice to have, but they're not going to drive your business. And saying that you were this or that in a professional association, I can tell you from experience, it is not a business driver. So I would encourage you to do it, but I would encourage you to do it. It's tough to make a difference as a volunteer in a big organization. So you're not going to change the world. You can contribute and help. And if you think of it as a flywheel, you can add a little bit of weight to the flywheel, but you're not going to change the direction.
Yep.
And then again, if you go into it with an attitude of respect and saying, what can I learn from this? I think the experience is well worth it. So people who go in with the right frame of mind come out much richer, and they'll invariably pick up some things that will help their business, or it'll open a door or give them an idea. It's like any networking, like people pay to belong to networking groups. Well, joining an association is a networking group, and it can be really valuable. So long answer to short question. Sorry about that.
No, that's what I was looking for. And I think that's what people want to hear. It was interesting that you talk about the flywheel, and that's what I talk about with our business with marketing. And not to harp on the digital advertising, it seems like an easy button for folks. And some people can do it effectively, I think, on their own. But what I've learned over the years is marketing a home inspection business, and probably any business, is tough. And the way that you set yourself apart is you figure out what drives your business, and you have to work. And the work doesn't care who does it. The work just wants it done. And you do the same thing, and you do it over and over and over, and you put in 10 times the effort as your competitor. And that's the thing that works. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree. I've got a very good friend who is not only one of the most successful real estate agents I know, he's also been a coach to a bunch of real estate agents. And his message is exactly the same. If you're going to tell somebody something once, don't bother, because it won't change their behavior. And that the repetition and the consistency, and if you're talking about trying to change a real estate agent's behavior, guess what? They don't do a deal every day. So if you talk to them on Tuesday and they don't have a deal and they don't have a sale and they don't have a client for the next 2 weeks, what is the life cycle of that conversation? I'm sorry, folks, it ain't 14 days. It's
like a fly.
No matter how charming Jeff is, they're going to forget him in 14 days. So that's why you've got to be consistent, and maybe persistent is another word for it.
Yeah.
But and it's like talking to your kids. I told you this before. There's no way to start the conversation. Of course you've told them that, and you probably told them 20 times. But this is what management, coaching, mentoring, and marketing is all about. It's that reinforcement of the message that you've told them already a bunch, but it needs to be delivered consistently. I completely agree with you that you cannot build a business. And I'm going to go a step further on the digital marketing. Everyone wants a hands-off approach to growing their business. Everybody wants, you've used the term easy button a couple of times. And I'm going to say that's a slippery slope to no place good. I'm going to say, if you want to differentiate yourself, you need to put in the WORK that Jeff talked about. And
Yep.
I'm sorry, as slick as the world is and as nice as Zoom meetings are, 2 dimensions is only 66% as good as 3 dimensions. Face-to-face is still the way people communicate best.
Yep.
You got to do it.
Yeah. And in the companies that I have coached, mentored, whatever you want to call it, I'll call people out. Here's what happens. Here's what we're afraid of. The home inspection business, the tree trimming business, HVAC. When you're doing a home service business and you're the one doing the business, it's very personal. So it's a fear of rejection, and it's a fear of success, because you get the no. Okay, now you've been rejected. So now you got the no, right? And then also the fear of success. Now that you get a yes, now you have to perform, and you're the one doing the performance, and you're going to be judged. So you just have to get over it and get out there and do the work.
Yeah, it is. It's why most businesses fail, because fear of failure, fear of success, and it boils down to inertia. You just can't get out. And it's a very easy thing to say and almost impossible to do. Do the hard stuff first. Do what you dread the most. And I will promise you that what you dread the most is not as bad as you think it's going to be, ever.
Yep. The worst part of what you dread the most is the thought leading up to it.
Yeah. It's way worse than the experience.
Yep. Alan, thank you so much. Thanks for your time here and just what you've done for me and my company over the years. I'm so grateful. I'm going to let you get on with your day and do important stuff. I've got to get to my nap. Anything that I've missed here that you would like to add, you feel like might be important?
Well, only, first of all, thank you. You know, I love to talk about the business, and you know, I love to talk to other people who understand the business. You've been selling yourself short through most of this, and I would say that if you want to talk to somebody who's an actual leader in this profession, you don't have to look much further than Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see about that.
We will.
All right.
Indeed. I'm going to go play in my sandbox.
All right. Hope your weekend's amazing. Thanks a ton, and we'll chat soon. Thanks for hanging out on the Service Business Blueprint with me, Jeff Luther. Stay in the loop as we keep delivering these strategies to supercharge your service business. Hit subscribe, leave a review, be part of our growing community. Now you have someone to walk with you as we create your service business blueprint. Until next time, remember, where you focus is where your energy goes. Beliefs turn to things, so choose the good ones.